Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really powerful story, and I want you to think of me as your mentor for this session. We're going to dive into a vital lesson on navigating complex and honestly pretty corrupt institutional power dynamics. We'll be following the journey of Fina Mara, a bright, ambitious student, and looking at exactly how she survived an environment that was supposed to elevate her, but quite literally almost destroyed her instead. So, what happens when your ultimate academic dream is guarded by predators? Just imagine it for a second. You step onto a campus that promises you absolutely everything. It's supposed to be the absolute peak of academic achievement, right? Your golden ticket to a brilliant future abroad. But then you realize this dream demands a devastating hidden price. Well, let's dive right in and look at the harsh reality Fina actually faced. For Fina, her destination was the CC campus of Fora Bay College. Now, students, affectionately, and maybe a bit ironically, called this place Mount Olympus. And that name actually perfectly captures how the institution was viewed. It wasn't just a university. It was the ultimate symbol of elite, exclusionary success. Up there on the mountain, miles above the daily struggles of the city below, students breathed this rarefied air. For Fina, it was a hallowed path of intellectual growth that she was certain would eventually lead her straight to America. But there's a massive gap between expectation and reality here. Fina arrived as a naive dreamer, desperately hoping for a fresh start and liberation from her past. But the reality of Mount Olympus? It was thin, it was cold, and it was incredibly deceptive. Almost immediately, instead of a sanctuary, she found herself plunged into a toxic atmosphere full of complicit silence and deep-rooted systemic corruption. Which brings us to Section 1, Violence in the Shadows. You see, the rot of this institution didn't just stay in the lecture halls. It crept right into her own dorm room. Fina lived with her cousin, Mamuna, who was tragically trapped in a cycle of domestic violence by her boyfriend, Simeon. And Fina, she watched, completely paralyzed. She had to listen to this violence through the door, watching a vibrant girl fade into a shadow of fear. It's heartbreaking, really. She was totally unsure of how to intervene in a culture that just seemed to look the other way. We've all felt helpless at times, but imagine being trapped right next door to it. And if you're wondering why she froze, it actually traces back to her elder Naboo. Naboo used to tell her this cautionary tale about old Papa Wind. The warning was simple. When you hear screams at night, cover your ears and do not go outside, or the monsters will take you away. This ancestral lesson of self-preservation basically forced Fina into a silence that left her feeling deeply, deeply complicit. She realized that by doing nothing, she was becoming a part of the violence itself. But the hostility wasn't just happening behind closed doors. Let's move to Section 2, Ethnicity and Alienation. The hostility actually extended right out into the open campus culture, targeting Fina's very identity. During a period of intense national economic hardship, the Fula people were being heavily scapegoated. And this tension, it exploded on Mount Olympus during a football match. Picture this. Fina is suddenly surrounded by a jubilant crowd that turns on her, taunting her with specific cultural slurs like Fulamusue. To make matters worse, her boyfriend at the time, Kemi, just met her humiliation with total indifference. This completely alienated her, forcing Fina into a state of what you might call internal exile. She became a foreigner in her own country, realizing she had to actively isolate herself and use sheer academic success as a shield. So she turns all her focus to her studies. But, as we'll see in Section 3, the academic gatekeepers, that was its own nightmare. Look at this timeline because you can actually see the trap slowly closing in on her. Term 1, she has Uncle Sam, a wonderfully supportive American professor. Great, right? Well, the university fires him for being too easy on the students. Term 2 brings Tompi Organic, an old-school lecturer who hits them with impossible standards and outright hostility. By term 3, she gets Dr. Davis Kamunga. He's somewhat helpful but completely unreliable and constantly making amorous advances. And finally, staring down failure in organic chemistry, she's pushed toward Kizzy, a predator who operates purely on transactional extortion. Here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Fina's struggle wasn't just about studying hard and getting decent grades. Academic progress on the mountain was actively guarded by powerful men who viewed female students as currency. As your mentor going through this explainer, I really need you to recognize the systemic nature of this trap. Fina wasn't just taking tests, she was trying to resist an institution where grades, and ultimately survival itself, were routinely traded for sexual favors. This intense pressure cooker brings us to the climax in Section 4, the storm and survival. Desperate to avoid failing her final, which, remember, would completely destroy her dream of America, Fina makes a fateful choice. She agrees to go to Kizzy's flat at night for exam questions. Now, both a literal and metaphorical storm is raging outside. As she battles the howling wind and rain up this treacherous hill, she falls and twists her ankle in the dark. In that moment of intense pain and pure exhaustion, she actually hallucinates her late father, Amadou. He asks her a piercing question. Finaba, what path is this that you have taken? It's a really profound moment where her ancestral past and her terrifying present violently collide. Still, driven by the absolute fear of failure, she pushes through the storm and gets to Kizzy's flat. But here's the thing. There were never any exam questions. It was a complete trap. When she realizes this and tries to leave, Kizzy corners her. He forces an assault that just utterly shatters her sense of safety, her sanctuary, and her dignity. The mountain finally broke her resistance. Fina flees into the night, deeply traumatized, but look closely at how the institution responds. Do they seek justice for her? Absolutely not. They protect the powerful. A narrative instantly spreads across campus that the pressure of final exams was simply too much for her, that she'd just gone bonkers and quit. This is the ultimate cruel indifference, labeling the victim as insane just to protect the predators and maintain the shiny illusion of Mount Olympus. But wait, Fasina's story does not end in defeat. Let's jump into our final section, forging a new path. Fina transitions from a naive dreamer into a hardened, tactical realist. She stops looking for fairness because, let's face it, she knows the system is rigged. Step 1, she completely rejects that toxic campus. Step 2, she absolutely refuses to internalize the insanity and victim labels they tried to slap on her. Step 3, she takes action, leveraging a connection to get a new opportunity at an American church mission in Koweït. And step 4, she realizes that survival is the absolute prerequisite for success. She didn't abandon her dream of America, but she knew she had to secure her safety first. She took back her agency, and she did it her way. Fina Mara arrived at Farabay College seeking enlightenment, but she left forged in iron. She learned the hard way that the path to success is rarely a straight line to the summit, especially when the mountain you're climbing is corrupt. So I want to leave you with this final thought for today's explainer. When you find yourself in an institution, a workplace, or just a world that feels designed to break you, how will you stop looking for fairness and instead find the tactical way out to walk your own path? Keep learning, stay focused, and I'll catch you in the next one.